we yearn for, our deepest longing, is to come home. And somehow this coming home, it really speaks to us even though we may not know what it means. The mind cannot grasp its full meaning. But something speaks to us. And in fact, our whole lives are dedicated to the search for coming home. This coming home is a sense of fulfillment, completeness, at oneness with ourselves and with life. And we dedicate our lives to this by searching for fulfillment in everything that we do. In our relationships, in our work, in our creativity, in our sense of security and stability, in our food and eating habits, in our shopping. Even the mind's movement, the egoic mind's movement towards more this and more that, is dedicated to this search for ultimate fulfillment. It's a kind of primordial longing to return to the oneness of the womb, a kind of innocent oblivion. Where the tight sense of self is dissolved into that oneness of being. The thing is, when that search is directed to the horizontal dimension, then that fulfillment is never ultimately fulfilling. It never brings that total satisfaction that we're really yearning for. When it's directed to the horizontal search, the search for this or that, it's like grasping at the waves of existence, the waves of phenomenal display. And then as we grasp these waves, there's no actual substance to them. You can't grasp a wave, you can't hold onto it, you can't own it. So we seek in the horizontal dimension of phenomena, of form, the manifestation of form, to grasp onto something to give us that fulfillment, as if that will take us all the way home. And so it's unsatisfying, and the search goes on and on and on. And at some point, when the futility of that search is really seen, perhaps after lifetimes, perhaps during this lifetime, almost definitely in this lifetime if you're sitting here, when the futility is really seen and you've become exhausted by that grasping at the waves, the possibility to turn towards a more authentic search becomes available, and that's the spiritual search. The thing is, the spiritual search itself becomes hijacked by the egoic mind. It's very subtle, it's very tricky, and it's very pernicious. It becomes hijacked as if awakening or enlightenment or truth can be owned, can be grasped, can be made into a package, can be made into a thing, can be made into another form. Because the egoic mind is identified with form. Even if that form is a thought, it's still a form. Even if that form is a feeling, it's still a form. We often look to spirituality to feel good. And even awakening experiences, states of bliss, states of peace, states of revelation, can easily be turned into a thing, a form. And so awakened states, awakening experiences can be very real. And yet, they come and go. And then there's a sense of disillusionment, as if we've lost something. And then there's a trying to get back to that which had been glimpsed, that which had been seen, that which had been attained, that which had been recognized, that which had been awakened to. And this is the subtlety of the horizontal search, the horizontal movement of mind that is still trying to grasp onto the wave, even if it's a spiritual wave. It becomes like a spiritual shopping basket. Something that we add to our sense of identity. Usually it's preferable to feeling miserable, feeling at peace, feeling at one, feeling enlightened, feeling awakened. They're all preferable to feeling miserable or depressed or angry or confused or broken or despairing. But they're still in the same horizontal dimension. There's still a division, as long as there's an inner division between this and that, what is good and what is bad, what is spiritual, what is unspiritual, what is enlightened, what is unenlightened, what is awakened, what is unawakened. As long as there is an inner division, there is not true awakening. There is not true oneness. And that's where it gets tricky. Because we fool ourselves into thinking that something has been reached, something has been attained, something has been added to the basket. At some point, if there is vigilance and honesty and a sincere search for truth, the truth that is beyond all form, at whatever cost it is to you as a separate entity, then there's the possibility of a vertical deep dive. Yeah? A dive into the verticality of being. It's an unknown dimension. It cannot possibly be known by the mind. And this is what's so scary about it. It's both what we really long for, a return to our innate beingness, but the mind cannot possibly know what beingness is. Even just saying that word, being, or beingness, creates a picture in the mind, creates an imagination and a hope of what that will bring to you and your life. So the mind cannot possibly know. And it's that unknownness that is so terrifying. But if you are sincere in your search for truth, in your desire for true liberation, then you will give your allegiance not to the movement of mind that wants to grasp onto every experience, every idea, every hope, every imagination, but you will give your allegiance 100%. Nothing less will do. To the seeing, the seeing of the movement of mind, and in seeing that, to turning around a 360-degree revolution of consciousness that allows of falling into the abyss of being. It's like coming to the edge of mind. Full stop. It doesn't mean stopping your thoughts. It doesn't mean stopping your thinking. You cannot do that. Your thoughts are like the waves on the ocean. They come and they go. They ebb and the flow. As long as you're alive, thinking happens. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is about turning your attention not to the waves so that you get lost in them, but to the very edge where wave meets ocean and it is totally unknown to you. What usually comes up at that point is an existential terror, the terror of annihilation. Along the way we meet other terrors. They're usually the terrors of our own woundedness, those experiences and places of contractive energies where we have pulled back from fully opening to what is. And they still play themselves out as reactive and defensive patterns from the past, from our personal past, from our karmic past, from our ancestral past, from our genetic past. We'll meet those along the way. But at the core of all that is an existential terror. The terror that you do not exist. Our willingness to fully face that, not as a mental construct, not as a philosophical debate, not as an intellectual argument, but a direct experience, the direct experience of reality. To meet that without an agenda, without a hope of what it might bring you. It's a surrender. It's a surrender of the mind to that which is unknown, to that which is ungraspable, to that which cannot be contained. It cannot be packaged, cannot be owned. It doesn't belong to you. And it certainly can't be gained. If anything, it's a death, a loss. What happens in facing the deepest core, the abyss of unknownness, is the possibility for the scaffolding that upholds the sense of self to be demolished. Yeah, this scaffolding is made up of all the constructs of who you think you are. All the ideas, all the thoughts, all the beliefs, everything that has arisen out of your conditioning, your personal conditioning, your social conditioning, your cultural conditioning. Biological conditioning. Everything that has arisen out of that, which is always a movement towards what you like, what is comfortable, what is safe, what makes you feel good. And there's nothing wrong with that, to feel safe. It's a natural protective mechanism of the biological organism. But there's also a moving away from what you don't like, what makes you feel unsafe, what makes you feel insecure, what makes you feel uncomfortable. Now that's okay when we're speaking of protecting the physical organism from physical danger. It's a natural evolutionary response. But when we're talking about a psychological protection, then it serves no purpose other than to uphold this scaffolding. And this scaffolding is your prison. It's not real. It's imagined. You've made it all up. But it feels real. It feels so dense. It feels so rigid. And it feels like you really don't want to let go of that. You'll hold on to it until death. But the invitation of true liberation is to meet that whilst you're alive. And to be willing for that scaffolding to come tumbling down. Maybe not all at once, maybe it does. but maybe here and there and here and there. As you meet these constructs, which are really just knots of energy, where the self has become wrapped around it and locked into it. To meet that and to discover what is true beneath that. And that's where the coming to the edge of mind, being willing to fall into the unknownness of this moment. It reveals itself to you as this moment. Whatever is in the field of your direct experience, whether it's a feeling, an emotion, a sensation, a pain, a story, a thought, it is that that is calling to be met. It is that that is calling to be open to without an agenda and without censorship. And without a claiming of it. It's a kind of innocence, a wide open vulnerability to this moment, because each moment is unknown. Very often when we speak of being in the moment, it sets up a picture of endless peace. Oh, being in the now sounds great, as if it was some bland state where nothing bad happens and there's just this feel-good state. But it's really not like this. How do you know what this moment is? How can you possibly know anything? Everything that you know is a figment of your imagination. This moment, and this moment, and this moment, and this moment is utterly fresh, utterly unknown, utterly open, forever revealing itself. It's forever giving itself to you without holding anything back, whether it's absolutely horrific or ecstatically delightful. It gives itself to you as it is. It's a love affair. This moment is a love affair with you. It's calling you. Whether this moment is a moment of contraction, or whether it's a moment of resistance, or whether it's a moment of deep surrender, your capacity and your willingness to meet it as it is, nakedly, without fixing, without controlling, without turning away, without trying to make it better, without trying to second guess it. And this includes everything that you're feeling, everything that you're experiencing. That's what this moment is. It's not separate from you. Allows you to fall in love with this moment, to fall into this moment without concern for self. It's selfless. When you fall in love with another human being, there's such a relief, there's such a freedom, because you lose yourself. Maybe for a month or 3 months or maybe 6 months, and then it's not so good, huh? Because the self comes back in. And this is how it is, both on the spiritual path, when we awaken and have an awakening experience, and then the self appears to come back in. And there is disillusionment, and then a wanting, a yearning to go back to that selfless place. And this is how it is in the moment. Each moment is your awakening. Each moment is a microcosm of the totality of your journey. So in each moment, there's the possibility of opening, and then something happens, and the self comes back in. Just seeing that mechanism is the beginning of the possibility of freedom. It's like coming home is the beginning. It's not the end. Awakening is the beginning, not the end. It's the beginning of authentic living. It's the beginning of the possibility of living as openness, living as love. Living as truth, living as wholeness. It's not a given that you will remain in that. It requires a gentle but unwavering allegiance to that, devotion to that, dedication to that. Because inevitably, once you have come home, once you have opened to truth, once you have recognized awakeness, then life comes pouring in with all its waviness. Yeah, all the waves come into the ocean because they're already in the ocean. They already are the ocean. And that means everything that has been hiding in the shadows comes rushing in to be loved, to be open to be purified in the openness of awakeness. And this is where our allegiance to that, our devotion to that, has to be a willing choice, because it's possible to still turn away from that, to deny that, because this is where the trickiness of the ego comes in. I've arrived. There's nothing more I need to do. There's nothing more I need to give attention to. And then there's still a division between that so-called awakened space and the totality of life as it is experienced in you, through you, as a human being. Yeah. So to open to that is to open to everything that's been hiding in the shadows, everything that has been previously unmet in you, all the energetic, psychological contractions, all the woundedness. It's not the wound itself that is so painful. It's not the story of the wound. Yeah? This happened to me, she did that to me, I was abused. That shouldn't have happened. It's not the story of the wound that is the problem, or that is so painful. It's the fact that we did not open to that experience, terrifying or terrorizing as it was at the time. We did not open. We created a boundary, which was perhaps very necessary at the time as a form of protection. But that boundary has become solidified, and in that solidification, it's become stagnant. It's no longer alive, and there's been a separation between what you experience as you and this thing, this form that you are denying, that you are rejecting. And every form, however painful, yearns to come home to source, yearns to fall into the abyss of being, where everything is dissolved and everything is resolved. All forms yearn to come back to emptiness. And you are the vehicle for that. You are the doorway for that. So your capacity to open to everything is love. And when everything that is false in you, everything that is part of that scaffolding that upholds your sense of self, the hammer and nails of every energetic contraction that has not been met, when all of that dissolves, all that remains is love. Not a nice love, not a polite love, not a pink, fluffy love, not a red frilly knickers love, not a sexy love, not a love that has to do with anyone or anything else. It's the love that recognizes love as the inherent nature of everything. Everything. Both the dark and the light. Both the suffering and the bliss. Both the mundane and the transcendent. And it opens to that because the nature of love is openness. Your capacity to be vulnerable in the face of everything that is part of your human experience brings you to invulnerability. It's the only true power you have. When there is a recognition that there is nothing known, nothing is known in this existence, and everything is unknown, then that becomes the groundless ground of being. There is no longer a division between you and the totality of life. So how can you be vulnerable to anything? How can you be a victim? Normally we equate vulnerability with victimhood, being a victim of something. So then we draw back from it, then we try to protect from it, and then the scaffolding starts to be rebuilt. How can you be a victim of anything if there is no separation? And that no separation is not about feeling this kind of oneness where we're all connected. It has nothing to do with being connected or disconnected. The whole concept of connectedness just dissolves. You can only be connected or disconnected if there is still an inner division. So then all the searching and the yearning to find connection through relationship, through what you do, through anything or anyone else, is seen to be a complete illusion, complete fabrication of the mind. But the beauty is, you're so intimate. You're not connected, but you're intimate. Life is experienced in its intimacy. There's no separation. It's so intimate. You're so naked. Life is so naked. It's the most tantric of experiences. And here is true fulfillment, true coming homeness. And then the waves of phenomenal existence, however they appear, and they keep on appearing, and the ocean of consciousness within which those waves appear, come and go, are one and the same. There is such a deep acceptance of duality. And that deep acceptance of duality is non-duality. It's not separate from. Non-duality and duality are not opposites on the spectrum. They're ultimately one and the same. They're opposites if you're seeing and operating from a horizontal dimension. They're one and the same in the verticality of being. And that's the only true liberation. And to live that as an ongoing experience. And it lives itself through you. Yeah? When the honesty of openness is here, the willingness to meet everything and open to everything and is here, then it lives itself through you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be true to it. And to be honest. When something appears that still appears to be a division, an inner division. And it's totally up to you. Nobody else cares. You know, it's like we tend to sometimes feel like there's shame in that there's shame in any energetic contraction or subtle division that still remains, as if somebody will notice and judge us for that. But there's only you. So you do this for you. And you are inseparable from the totality. You do this for love because you are inseparable from love. I think I better pause there for some questions. Yes, I think there's a microphone somewhere.
Thank you. How's this? Is this good? I'd like to share an experience with you. It's just been coming up a bit lately. I've had a recognition of awakening and feel like I'm on the backside of this thing. And I'm real glad to hear you speak about just a sense of now what. And so many relationship things and all the pain and suffering, so much of the pain and the suffering that felt so personal from the past has been really purified or metabolized beautifully. There's still this sense of confusion that comes up around, I'll just tell the recent example. It's a sense of something missing and a desire to do something artistic. And what is that artistic expression that my heart's desiring or that's wanting to be expressed? And in that experience, listening to the mind and a part of me, having had many great non-dual teachers, says, oh, this is just more struggle and just mind process of wanting something. And then there's like, oh, I'll just appreciate being in silence for a bit. And then that impulse comes back again. And with it comes some chatter of, what is this thing? And so I'm using this art example one because in one way it doesn't sound like this terrible pain from the past or something. It's just something present that it's almost looking for some guidance on how to untangle itself. Because it feels like a mental phenomena, or is it just life wanting to find a place to express itself?
Sure. Okay, so this impulse comes, and to follow that impulse is a very natural movement of becoming that arises out of being. Yeah. So this idea of not doing once we've arrived at being is another fallacy. Yeah. So you allow doing, in this case artistic expression, to arise and move through you. But what comes up for you is that there is still an entanglement with the story around that, and that's what is calling to be examined. For instance, perhaps there's a story of like what it might give you, and to look at that honestly. If this was expressed, if I could express this, do I have an agenda as to what this might bring to me that I haven't got already? As a feeling sense. Yeah? These are the kind of questions to inquire more deeply, to see where those contractions are still there. Is there still a story of what it might add to self? Because if that impulse is really true, you cannot help but follow it. It cannot help but move through you. Life will move through you, and you will be a servant of that. There'll be no self in it. It'll be a happening. That doesn't mean that you're passive and you don't do anything, but the experience of it is one of being moved by the Spirit, rather than you having to do anything. So if there is still a sense of something that is a kind of density in there as you're describing it, some kind of story that's about the self, that's what's calling you to examine, because inside that will be something that is calling you to open to something that's even deeper than that. Yeah, does that make sense?
It does. In this case, I've done some inquiry around it, and it's clear I'm not trying to get something out of it, whether it's notoriety or anything. It's just like, where does this thing want to go? And in the same time space, let's say within the same days or so, there's this type of mental phenomena that it's very clear to me it's just concerned about the way I look, or upset at somebody for cutting me off. It's obvious, just mind being crunchy, and for that it's simple. I don't pay much attention to that, but I laugh at it. Or you lose something and it's just attachment. I recognize that so easily, and it doesn't stick to me at all.
Okay.
And so there's a sense of discernment almost about what when something comes up like that is where there's some confusion experience, because it's a sense of it. It's just mind being more kind of nefarious or mischievous in its way of creeping in, and so it becomes like there's a sense of carefulness, given the teachings you just showed and sharing yourself, of like, where is the nuance of mind working in its way? And because I've seen it be mischievous in the past, of hurting others, or making excuses with it. So in this case, it's something that seems innocuous, like expression of art, yet there's a sense of like, just, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then give your attention to that which is the bigger space beyond the mind. Yeah? Allow that. Yeah? But don't give your attention to it. Give your attention to that which is moving through you, that is not the waviness of the mind. Let that happen. It's happening. You don't have to get rid of that. Yeah? I'm being guided to, I think we need to wrap up here. Is that right? Yeah, there's another talk in here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry there's not really enough time for questions.
You can meet outside. Amoda will step outside, and if you have a burning question, you want to meet with her outside, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to talk with you.
That's fine. Okay.
Thank you.